Welcome back to the channel, and today's Chewing the Fat subject is about what was better back in yesterday year with retro football that we currently do not have in modern football. Let's take a look. Thank you. So I'd like to welcome back Reese, back to this episode 9 of Chewing the Fat. Reese, thank you so much for appearing again. I always really appreciate your contributions to each and every subject. I always chucking you at the very last minute. So thanks again for being here.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me on. Chewing the Fats, it's about a thing that we both love. So, of course, I'm going to say yes when I can and be part of this. So, I'm excited to talk about what this video content's about, actually.
Good stuff. So today's content is things that were better back in yesterday year in football, as in retro football, that you think is not in the modern game and you wish it was. Okay, I'll give my. I've got a list of 5. You've got a list of 5 as well. Alternate it, yeah, and then we just discuss each point. I'll start with a very easy one. Just chuck it out there. Orange footballs in the snow.
Yes, it seems like because it was always. I remember changing the ball at half time where the snow started coming down. Let's get the orange ball out and the yellow ball at half time. And isn't it sometimes if there's only one available and it bursts, it's game over?
Because now they play like a fluorescent yellow football, don't they? They pretty much all year round. Like, so that I'm sure they still use it somewhere. I think I see it in Germany. I looked up, I've done a bit of YouTube research earlier, and I did see a game in Germany that was using an orange football because they was playing in the snow in Germany for the week completed. But I haven't seen it for a long time. But if you watch like a match of the 70s or something, retro stuff, match of the day, there's a few like old FA Cup games and things where they was playing with an orange football when it was like icy and snowy, and I just thought, yeah, I quite like that. It's a bit unique, and I've not seen that for a long time. Have you seen it at all? Orange football?
Not for a long time. No, I think a lot of the footballs these days are yellow anyway. But the ones that they actually have the bright orange ball, again that popped to my mind, and I don't know why I know this. But there's like an old 2000s Nottingham Forest game. And the blizzard came down heavily. I think it's in the early 2000s, and they had to call the game off. But like they used the white ball, couldn't see it. Then they used an orange ball, and when they then couldn't see that. And if you can't see an orange ball in the middle of a snowstorm, I think that's curtains for that game. I have to say. But I haven't seen it. No, I haven't seen it for a while. It's a fair point. I don't. After making my list, I'm surprised I didn't put that in there. I didn't even consider it actually.
Because on the snow as well. Just the sidetrack. On some of the guys I've seen, they get a broom. They broom off the lines, don't they? So you got the lines. You can see the white lines. So you have that broomed off line. Yeah. You can see the penalty box and the lines, and then obviously these orange football sort of dotting around on the pitch. But yeah, so that's my. I'm glad that was a reaction, but that's my first one. So what's your first one then, Reece?
Okay, so I've got to put them in order. I tried a bit of variety, but the first one for me, you need to remember, maybe our retro football is slightly skewed because I was born in 1990. So my retro football experience is probably from 97 onwards to about maybe 2006, 7, somewhere around there. That's but I obviously was around the 70s. But my one is the stanchion in the corner of the goal, the top corner.
Yeah, I know you're talking
about. The thing is, the reason I say that, you don't see that all goals now in every game I've seen in the Football League and Premier League, they look the same, albeit the net might be a different colour. But I used to like
a Mundale goal, a rectangle goal. Whereas before, sometimes the ball could get stuck in that statement.
Yeah, that was like the bullseye shot, wasn't it? If you could pull that off, you'd done everything right. And like I remember at Gillingham, you had those for a long time. We never had like the rectangle goals. We always had the ones that sort of went backwards as a triangle. And I thought that was quite a unique selling point of Priestfield. I don't think you really get that as much anymore. And also, like, I remember in South America, you get, I think Italy is one of the really deep ones where it was a big truck, really deep. They go far back as well. And you don't seem to see those anymore. And I used to quite like that. And I remember some classic clips, I think Coventry in the 80s of it, ball it in the stanchion coming out and the referee not seeing it go in. So I get why it's changed to a certain extent. But there is that, it is the ball in the back of the top of the net, then rippling down, and the keeper has to get up and put the net over his head to get the ball out. There's just something quite really pleasing about that.
You know what, Reece? When I'm doing my non-league ground hopping, I'm now going to look out for that because I haven't actually looked out for it. I'm sure there's some ground. So if I see one, I shall mention you in the video about the stanchion. So I'm gonna do
Yes.
that. That's going to be a thing I'm going to look out for on my ground coffee. So yeah, I like that. That's good. That's good stanchion. Okay. Okay. So my second one is muddy football pitches.
Oh, I get that. So I took that out my list.
Okay.
Yes, I took that out my list. That was like I made like six, and
Yeah.
I just wanted to get rid of one, and
Yeah.
that was one of them. Yeah, like heavy games, heavy pitches,
Yeah.
middle of December.
Because now obviously the top clubs under soil heating. Obviously, the groundsman. I mean, grass maintenance now is so much more ahead of what it used to be 30, 40.
Hmm.
But the worst pitches used to be the lower league pitches. But a lot of them have 4G pitches now, so they obviously have plastic pitches, so they don't have that same wear and tear. And obviously, as I said, even the lower league grounds, they just pitch technology is so much more than what it was. So you don't really see it anymore. But again, going back to my reminiscent, match of the 70s and watching YouTube, literally white kit covered in mud.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know something about it. I just sliding around. Just yeah, it's
There was like it's like actually middle of November when it's hammering it down and you're sliding through the mud. It looks like there's been an explosion in a chocolate factory somewhere. Like half the time, it just like covered and caked in the whole thing.
and the
It's quite incredible.
weather always seemed to be really bad back then for some
Yeah,
reason.
it was. Yeah, you're right. Actually, it was either hammering down or it was quite often like quite dry and hard, and
Yeah,
and the ball would bounce. Like
yeah,
I mean, really
yeah,
bounce.
yeah.
That would be yeah. And I just and the heavy pitch. You're right. Actually, non-league might have like to a certain extent, especially in this in the sort of conference north and south. You've lost a little bit of that charm maybe of the heavy pitches because that would always be an advantage in an FA Cup tie when you went and a team from the championship would come down. They have to play on this really trudgy pitch, and you because you played it week in week out, you get used to it. So
Yeah.
that was always to your advantage. That's why you come and see some FA Cup shocks. But yeah, I think yeah, that is definitely definitely one to
Good stuff.
yeah. Don't see that
Okay.
anymore.
So what's your second one?
So so this is this I think you'll like this one because of the world of YouTube, the world of the internet and instant media. What you don't see anymore is the VHS football gaff videos anymore. Nick Hancock, Roy McGrath, and all those
Yeah,
people.
yeah. Yeah, you're right. I know that you used to get it for Christmas, like it's a
Yeah.
classic. Like yeah, I've had like for example, 101 greatest goals. I remember getting that on
Hmm.
video for Christmas when I was a kid, and yeah, football gaffs. Yeah, then I like music and sound effects in the background. Nick Hancock. Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
I know
And,
exactly.
and it's the only time that you watch it at Christmas. The only time your nan would watch any football.
Yeah, yeah. That's a
but
really good one. I quite like that one. Yeah,
and I used to, as a kid, I used to have them on VHS. I used to watch them religiously, and it's quite funny because you can get access to them on the internet, and quite even now at my age, I still get a lot of joy out of rewatching it. It's really a nostalgic feeling watching that kind of football. And I know exactly what's coming up. I watched it 100 times, but there's something it hits, and it just is nice to remind myself when I was a young boy watching those back. I used to get immense joy out of them, and also like I now get the jokes Nick Hancock would say that I didn't get all that time ago. So I'm still laughing a bit. Going, oh, that's what he meant. All right, so I still get that coming
kid,
through.
he's just done that. It's one straight over. Straight
Yeah.
over here. That's a good. I quite like that. That's a good one. So, okay, my third one is maybe a little bit controversial, and I don't want to see it change now, but I do miss it, and it'll make sense when I explain in a minute. Okay, so for me, I miss only having one team promoted from the National League into the Football League.
Okay, that is
So, and
controversial.
I'll explain this. Okay, I don't want it changed. But back in the day, when there was only one team get promoted from 1987 up to about 2002, I think it was, for me to earn your right to get into the Football League, it's such an achievement. It's such a treasured thing to have Football League status. Okay, so to win the National League, to win non-league football effectively and get into the league, you deserve your place there. And to come bottom of the Football League, as in 92nd, you don't deserve to beat it. Okay. So trapdoor effect. I like that sort of theme because it wasn't like a normal promotion relegation. It's a real trapdoor. If you've come bottom, it's a nightmare. You're in non-league football, and it's going to take a while to get out of it. But I like the playoffs. I wouldn't want to see the playoffs scrapped. For me, the biggest problem is now the way the playoffs sort of operate in the National League. You could actually finish seventh in the national and get promoted. And I think to myself, doesn't really sit right with me that sometimes because you could just
as
scraping on 65 points at 7th place and get promoted. You think, well, does that deserve a place in the Football League as opposed to finishing top or second? So I wouldn't want it changed, as I say, but I quite like that whole how it used to be back in the day where it just felt so special getting promoted into the Football League. So
it's a really interesting concept. So actually, it's matched here in Germany. To go up, for example, into the Bundesliga, you have to finish first or second for autos, and then third place you get put straight into a relegation playoff with the team who finished third from bottom in the Bundesliga, and that goes all the way down until the third division, where four get relegated and go into regional leagues. And like so in German divisions, German Football League, if it's actually much more special to get promoted because they've only got top three spots to have any chance to go up. And then that extends further down to regional divisions. And this is where you're absolutely right. So there are 5 regional leagues in Germany, and there are 4 places to get promoted. So out of those 5 leagues, the top spots, there are 3 where you get automatic promotion. So you have to win the league. And for the other 2, you have to come top, and then they play each other, and the winner of that gets the last place. So there is an opportunity in regional German football where even if you win the league, you still might not go up because you have to win that playoff. And it does make it very challenging to get promoted out of that non-league or regional league system. But you're absolutely right. It does make it more special if that happens. The caveat to that, or the downside, is that you could end up. There's a team that I went to do my vlog recently, Oberhausen, and they're always about 4th or 5th in the league every year, and they never seem to get enough to get up, but they're too good never to be in the sort of lower echelons of the league. So they always kind of feel like, oh, we're just in the same sort every time, and there's no real meaning to our games 2/3 of the way through the season. So that's kind of where maybe, like you say, in the National League, the 7th and 6th positions add that a little bit of competitive nature.
As I said, I wouldn't want to change because if you just had one going up and you had a runaway leader, the season's over in March. You know, they've got 100 points. You know, there's nothing to play for. So I completely get the playoffs. I like the playoffs, but for me, it was just that trapdoor. It's special dropping out the league into non-league. And I like the Wembley final. I mean, one compromise could be similar to what you said. If you finish second in the National League, you could play second to bottom in the Football League as a final at Wembley, maybe. I don't know, but it'll never change. I know it will never change. But it's because the playoff system's slightly different in the National League to the Football League, and it does give advantage to the teams that finish higher because they have home advantage. It's a one-legged affair, which I quite like as well. But it's just, if you finish 7th, that's the only thing that sits with me. But I say I wouldn't want to change it. But I liked it how it used to be, and it did go back. I wouldn't be fussed, but I'm not fussed either as it stays. And just one thing as well, because we mentioned the league, just this is a half point of 5.5 of things I like to check. I actually miss, and I'm of an age remembering this, Division 1, Division 2, Division 3, and Division 4, and the Vauxhall Conference as it was then. So Premier League, Championship, whatever. I just like the old Division 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I quite like.
Yeah, I think I could agree with that. Obviously, I would say at the end of the day, it's just semantics, but it's to have that kind of obvious 1, 2, 3, and 4 is charming in itself. And yeah, I think if it went back to that, I would secretly like that better.
Good stuff. Okay, so what's your
So now, this is an interesting one for me because this comes from playing Sunday League when I used to play Sunday League, and I used to play for Maidstone United for a period of time as well in the sort of the under 16s. And I was thinking this when I was cycling back today. But I tell you what I do miss, and it'd be great to have it back, is just when all your players go out on the pitch, they have numbers from 1 to 11 only. And that's it.
Yeah. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Because the numbers have meaning, don't they? And I understand. I just think Trent in Liverpool, he has a 66 all the time, and their numbers of certain players and they link together. But there's something just really classic from the goalkeeper's number 1, and then you go all the way up to the centre forward number 11, and then everything else in between. And
if you're number 11, you're centre forward, like, you know?
Exactly, and that's obvious. Like, and if you switch the sport over to rugby, the numbers are really important for that. But in football, it's kind of gone off in this weird sort of direction where it doesn't really matter what number you have; it's just an identifier. But I quite like the old school where it was if you're playing like I don't know centre mid, you probably got a number 6 shirt on, and that's it. And I quite miss that. And like I say, when I used to play Sunday league football, that was it. You had 1 to 11, a couple of subs, 12, 13, 14. That was it, really. And that's the simplicity of that is. And actually, when you got given a number, you knew what your job was. That was it. Like,
Yeah, but that's when we had team numbers instead of squad numbers, is what effectively, wasn't it? So yeah, I quite like that one. Yeah, there's a noticeable change from when I was young. I remember it being 1 to 11. Yeah, and also this is not on my list, but just to slip one in, referees wearing black as well.
oh, 100%. Oh, 100%. Like, you bang on with that because the referees don't need to wear any other colour. Because I think it's against the rules for a team to play in a referee matching colour black. But I think obviously maybe some teams wanted to play in those colours, so the referees then play in yellow or an orange. But actually, yeah, you're right. Black socks, pull them up, look smart, pencil in the sock.
I think it changed from memory. When the Premier League started in '94, I think the referees wore this sort of greenish colour, and I think that's when it changed from black to like they're trying to make a bit of a statement being slightly different. And I think the referees for the Premier League back in the early did like a slight, like a green colour. If I get a picture, I'll ping up on the screen now. But they had a green colour, and that was the change of them moving away from the traditional black. Yeah, so from memory.
But on kits, though, I've got the old '98 England one here from France '98. So I thought I would wear that for this video specifically. It's quite retro. I think it's original actually because I found it on eBay for $5, so I was going to snap that up.
Well, that England shirt is a perfect lead into my next one.
Okay, perfect.
So that's good. So international football. I love international football, but I got a bit of a problem now with the European Championships being 24 teams. And the World Cup's going to go to 48 teams. I think personally, European Championship, 16 teams, World Cup, 32. It's got to be Jeopardy. I'm going to use that on the next one as well. The next point I want to say, Jeopardy football. There has to be trying to appease everybody so you finish third and go through. It doesn't work for me. 16 teams, top 2 go through in each group. If it's tougher to qualify, then so be it. If we don't qualify as England, well, then so be it. But it's got to be an achievement qualifying for a tournament, and I can't see a time now England would never not qualify for the European Championships. It's just so easy now.
Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right. I can extend that. I've got my own little wild theory that I would love to see. Would be get almost every country in the world to be in the World Cup and have a straight knockout right from the start.
Now we're talking about Jeopardy football. That'd be fun.
Yeah. And if it's France versus Germany in the first round, then so be it. That's it.
We'd be praying to get Fiji or something,
Yeah.
That'd be fascinating, wouldn't it? Just take it in America. There'd be hundreds of games, but it'd just be like great fun.
Yeah. I'd be up for that one.
So certainly for me, 24 teams of the Euros, it just drags it out, and without being too disrespectful to the smaller nations, it just invites other nations that shouldn't really be there, and it just means that the bigger teams always get there as well. Mainly, apart from Italy last time, but so it's just for me, it's watered it down as an event.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right, and it's nice to have more teams, I suppose, and they get a bit of exposure. But at the same time, it kind of, how often do countries like come out of nowhere to have stronger teams? Like, I mean, like Hungary at one point in the 50s, it's like Greece winning the Euros 2004. Like, you occasionally get these little blips, but actually, if you look at the setup, the countries that are normally in the tournaments are pretty much the same all the way through. And the more you open it up, you're right, it does dilute it to a certain extent. So I think I can agree with that one.
I mean, look, the European Championship is the premier tournament of national football in Europe, so it's got to be the premier teams. And you do get, as you say, Greece is a perfect example because that was when it was 16 teams and they won it. But I mean, Portugal won it in, was it 2016? They come third in their group.
Yeah, they didn't win a game in 90 minutes, I don't think.
Yeah, and then there's another one with Northern Ireland, 2016. they in their group stage they won one, drew one, and lost one, and then they lost in the first knockout, lost to 16. Well, I think they lost to Wales actually in the first knockout game. And I remember the commentator saying, "Oh, Northern Ireland have had a really great tournament." I'm thinking, well, they played 4 games, they've only won one game out of 4.
Yeah,
It wasn't that
yeah.
good, was it? But that was my
But
yeah.
but then on that as well, like you said, but then you get, I think, 92 Denmark won the European Championship, and they didn't even qualify in the onset, and I think that was when the dissolution of Yugoslavia occurred, so there was a space up for grabs. Denmark took it and won it. So
Yeah, and that's when there was only 8 teams in it as well back in 90.
right,
So,
yeah.
so that's I would like to go back, and the World Cup is still currently 32, but it's going to be up to 48, which I think is going to completely mess it up. I just lots of dead rubber games, early stages. It's just for me, it doesn't work.
Feels like if you watch the Olympics and like the Olympics has a start date, doesn't it, where the opening ceremony happens? But before that, there's usually a couple of football or rugby matches before that, just as a prelim to go feed into the Olympics. It might feel a little bit like that.
Yeah. So that's my gripe number 4. So what's your number 4 then, Reece?
So my number 4. So I've actually, because I've got a list of 6 really, so I'm trying to decide between what ones to go for. So
you can give me all 6 if you want.
I will give you all 6. So I'll tell you, so I make an extension to this. So for me, Teletext.
Oh. CFAX.
Well, yeah. That as a kid, looking at that and trying that. Do you know what? I think that's probably the first exposure I remember really having to football was Teletext, because I was looking at the screen, looking at these teams. It's that's when I got really exposed to it. And over time, you start to learn more about teams, and it all comes through, and you get the news coming up and everything. Like, for example, I remember a really weird memory I have of Teletext is watching the second division coming through as it was then. I thought I knew all the football teams in the second division, and suddenly I go, "Dad, what's WBA? Who are they?" And he's like, "Oh, and he said, "We're going there, so it's West Bromwich Albion." I'm like, "Okay." So it was just, but I remember those little bits like that, and that's because of Teletext and the slowly updating of it and changing through. Like, for me, it was that was always a delight, and that feels really retro, no matter how you look at it. Like, that for me is a real a timepiece for retro football.
I think youngsters. What I want to do, these bits we talk, I might try and pop them up on the screen so you can see.
Nice.
There'll be some youngsters thinking, "What the hell are you going on about?" But you're right. It was at the time you press the refresh button on your remote control and you refresh the scores. And from memory, I think obviously because that CFAX was on BBC, and I think it was Oracle, wasn't it, on Channel 4 and ITV?
Yeah.
But I think the sport page was 301 or 302. That was the sport for football. And Teletext was great.
Like, it just used to be on. What you'd have it on and have the radio in the background, that's like any sort of like 5 Live or whatever it was, and that's it. And that is a great afternoon. I always, by the way, I always will say that some of the best music that exists is a ball game on the radio. For me, I love it. I could listen to that all day. Same as cricket, same thing actually. I could listen to it on the radio all day. I really do enjoy that. So so Teletext, CFAX, that kind of stuff is we don't have it anymore. I think it went out quite recently actually. I think
they turned to Signal recently, a couple of years ago. But yeah, Teletext. If you had a really posh telly, you could press the mix button and you used to have the screen. You said the telly on the background. It used to be like translucent. They had the text in front of the TV picture.
Yes. Oh, it did. You're right. Yeah, you did.
I think you had to have a posh telly for that, but
yeah,
I do remember having the mix buttons. So you could carry on watching what you was watching and still see the scores at the same time. But yeah, that's a good trick, actually. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, like that one.
Okay, my number 5. I've covered this on a previous Chewing the Fat episode with Lee down at Football League Adventures, and that is knockout football in Europe. Okay, and I'm going to keep banging on about this because obviously got the new group format now, started this year in the Champions League. I want to go take it right back. I'm not against. I love European football. You know, the winners of England playing the winners of Spain. How brilliant is that? It's just brilliant. Yeah. But for me, European Cup, Cup Winners' Cup, and UEFA Cup, knockout from round 1, complete jeopardy football. That for me can't be beaten because in my eyes, cup football, and it is a cup, shouldn't have any league involvement. It should just be straight knockout for me, over 2 legs, home and away, and then the final being at a neutral ground. That some people, I think, what I find is from the last video, the younger generation seem to like Champions League, but people, I'm a bit older than you, Reece, but people of our sort of generation, they're a bit older, they like the older format, knockout from round 1, just the champions and the European Cup.
Mhm.
Maybe the winners of the previous year, like you had, I think it's back in 1979 or 80, Nottingham Forest played Liverpool in the first round, both English teams. And so, yeah, as a reward, you get to the next, you qualify for the next year's tournament, even if you haven't won your league. But that for me, as I say, I look back at the results back in yesterday year, and I think, oh, if only it was the same, because
Mm.
it would have been so exciting to watch on telly. Like every game would have really meant something. And now, the way the group games are now, it's just Bayern Munich. Liverpool could have a bad cut of games, but they're still going to get through.
Mm.
They're going to win 6 out of 8. But if you have a bad day on knockout football, you're out.
That's
That's
it.
and that's the beauty of knockout football,
I,
So
and also there's a fantastic game. There's a really good game from the Cup Winners' Cup, and it's when Chelsea went to Tromso in the Arctic Circle, and they went. And there's a fantastic video of like I can't. Is it Ed De Hoyer, the goalkeeper at the time? And it's just like it's like the 2000. Is it like the '98 Chelsea team up in the Arctic Circle trying to play in heavy snow, like -10 against the Cup winners of the Norwegian Cup winners of Tromso, and I think Tromso won it 3-2, or at least it might be 2-2. But there's clips on YouTube, and it's just incredible. And that kind of fixture won't. Well, it could happen again, kind of, because we have these different levels now of the European football. But it was a home fixture and away fixture knockout. I think Tromsø went to Stamford Bridge and lost like 7-1 in the end. But like, it's just for me a really lovely bit of football and a lovely little moment where it's just like this English team with Italian players and Dutch players, all this going up to the Arctic Circle, freezing their balls off, trying to play this Norwegian team, and it's just delightful. It's really nice, and I wish the Cup Winners' Cup kind of continued. I like that and the straight knockout approach, 100%. Jeopardy football for me, I think there's a lot to be said for it. And maybe you're right. I'm sort of in that generation still where I would really be in favour of that. If you have a bad game, tough titty.
well, Chelsea, they've gone to the Arctic Circle. Well, you're a professional footballer, deal with it, because then they've had to deal with Stamford Bridge. So, or if you go play in a hot Spain in the evening, you just got to deal with it. You're a perfect. Just if you're a professional tennis player, 1 minute you're playing on clay, 1 minute you're playing on grass. You adapt to the conditions, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the idea of having home advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And you deal with if you lose, well, you take them back home and you have home advantage at Stamford Bridge for that circumstance, and you beat them at home, which they did, obviously. But yeah, it's for me that it's just the way it's geared up. We all know what it's done for money, fine, to stop the Super League, but it's taken away so much magic. Even the group games last season, the last 20 years, for me, I only really look at the European Cup, as I want to keep calling it, when it sort of gets to the quarterfinals. And even then, it's the same teams. It's the same every year. It's like Bayern Munich, Paris Saint-Germain, Man City, Liverpool. It's always the same sort of teams, isn't it?
But just to do a counter argument, I would say the new format has changed that slightly in the sense I know it's a massive league. I know it's quite controversial, but I'm quite in favour of this big league because you get some teams that are like Brest, I think, are up there in the French team are up in the 5th at the moment, and they're like Paris Saint-Germain are quite low down. So I think because of that, it does mean every single game in the Champions League in its modern format is meaningful, but you do have to get over the fact you've got leagues the size of like 30 or so teams in it, which is like the Argentinian first division, which is like that, so that is it's an interesting approach. But currently, I am actually I'm finding it quite entertaining. But I do think Jeopardy knockout games are usually the most memorable ones that people still talk about in a long time. They have a longer expiry date of in people's memories, I think.
If I could slightly defend the new format. I like the fact they only play each other once, so they'll have 7 different opponents. I think, okay, that's a bit more interesting. So, and it's the same format in the Conference League and the Europa League. So, for example, like TNS Welsh champions, they played Shamrock Rovers last week. I thought, okay, that's quite an interesting game. And and I think Rangers are playing Man United. Are they? So I think they're playing each other. Yeah. I
think so. Yeah.
One-off game. Aston Villa are playing Celtic. Are they? I can't remember the game.
But even so, when Aston Villa played Bayern Munich, I think at one point.
Yeah, there's a couple of one-off all British games. So yeah, so this format's probably better than the previous league format because there's a really weak team in the group. They're getting hammered 4 or 5 every week. It's like it spreads it out a little bit. So is it better than it was last season? Probably in my eyes, but for me personally, compared to the old format, no way. I'll go back to
Get them knocking each other out straight from day one. Come on, that's what we want, really.
with no seeding as well.
Yeah, just straight up draw.
Yeah,
Bang,
yeah.
go.
So if Man City draw Barcelona round one, be done with it. That's it.
Yeah, sorted.
It'll never happen. We know that.
No, we know that.
We can dream, can't we? Like, yeah. So,
we can.
Okay, that's my fifth one. So what's your fifth one then, Ray? So
okay, so I'm decided between two. I will reveal both of them.
Give me both of them. Go on.
Okay, so I'm going to go with my second place of this. So one of mine is the original Soccer AM, Tim Lovejoy, Helen Chamberlain.
Yeah.
I mean, that for me is like that would always, when I grew up, that was football mornings for me. Saturday morning before we go to Priestfield, we'd watch that, and then it would just gear up. 4-hour long episodes. That's what it used to be for me, and I used to love it. And again, it was kind of that thing. My dad and I would enjoy it for different reasons. At the time, there's some jokes I didn't get, my dad would enjoy, and it was great for everyone. And that for me is I know you can never get that kind of those experiences back, but they're really nice to remember. And looking back at old clips and things like that, I thoroughly enjoyed in Soccer AM with the classic Tim Lovejoy and Helen Chamberlain. That for me was primetime morning Saturday football viewing. Yeah, absolutely.
It was quite groundbreaking because it was the first program. I mean, you had Baddiel and Skinner doing certain bits on fantasy football,
yeah,
so like a funny take on the football side of things. But that was the first one. Because that was more international football, but this was the first take on domestic football where they took the mickey out, their third eye, just silly little thing no one else ever done before. And you watch it now; it looks a bit dated now, but at the time it was groundbreaking because no one else was doing it. Now lots of people do it now, and obviously you've got lots of YouTube channels do it, but they were certainly the front runners.
Yeah.
And at the time, it was 20 odd years ago. It was actually quite a good watch, and I watched many episodes. And then Tim Lovejoy left, didn't he, after a few years, and then you had a few other presenters on. But yeah, they'd like the girls doing the catwalk and stuff, didn't they?
Yeah, the catwalk. They had the fans on in the Luther Bisset stand, I think they used to call it, and yeah,
the Luther. I remember that, the Luther Blissett stand, and they had the they had like a lot of sort of rock stars on, stuff, music stars. Singers,
and it was they had the shootout at the end of the show, didn't they? The fact, like, just like it's just simple, harmless fun for me, and I just quite liked it, and for me it will live long in the memory. But you just quickly mentioned about Baddiel and Skinner. One thing I did think about in my list is you don't seem to get those really well cut comedy shows as strong anymore, like Baddiel and Skinner. That used to be quite an iconic thing in England when the international tournaments were ongoing. That seems to, maybe I'm missing it, I don't know, but it doesn't seem to be as a strong presence anymore.
Yeah, I mean, but they had Stato as well. He was there in the back. He was the straight man giving all the stats, and they was basically taking the mickey out of him all the time, really. But I think they pretty much ruined the career of Jason Lee, didn't they? He used to play for Nottingham Forest, and he had his hair, sort of dreadlock sort of hair.
They
basically mocked him by having a pineapple, and he pretty much I remember he got interviewed a few years later, and he said like he was like quite upset because they were just really mocking him all the time. It also affected his confidence on the pitch because all the fans were then mocking him as well. And so they had as a direct result of their mickey taking, they affected his confidence on the pitch.
Well, that's crazy. It's influential for both positive and negative reasons. I can give you my other one. That was my kind of second. This, I think you'll laugh at this one, and I think this is something which is. I mean, I've been to loads of football games. You've been to loads of football games, and maybe it changes down the football pyramid. But one thing I miss is 4-4-2. that is, I miss that. And I get why it develops and changes, but that is the classic formation. Is now rare. It's a seldom formation that never really pops its head up anymore.
Do you know what manager I link 4-4-2 to? So I think the manager, I think of that straight away, and he's not even a real manager. He's a TV manager, and that's Mike Basset. Mike
Basset, yeah, of course. I've got lovely memories of watching that. And then is it Norwich City wins the league with, and he's going down the A road, the top, the bus.
They won the Mr. Clutch Cup.
Yeah, that's it.
And I was on the open top bus, and he went down the dual carriageway, and he took the wrong turn. Yeah, it's a brilliant film. It's about 25 years old now, that film, but they've done the film. I know we're sort of going off track a bit. It's just a brilliant film. And then he done the series a few years later with his local football team. I can't remember what he's called now, but he's done a sort of 6-part series on ITV.
Okay.
He was a manager of a League Two game.
Is
Ah,
it Rovers? Something Rovers? I can't remember it exactly. Might be.
oh,
I might have got it wrong.
yeah,
But
if
yeah,
it was to me, I'll say it. But yeah, and he done that was quite funny as well, to be fair. But yeah, four
yeah.
four two Mike Basset, England in the World Cup against Brazil.
Yeah, it's brilliant, but it's quite, you know. But you go back, you look at like formations, and it's that what seems to be the standard classic one. That and it kind of matches to my shirts of 1 to 11 as well. That's you knew where it was. That was it, and
Oh.
it was simple as that.
And,
Maybe,
and there was a magazine called 442, a football magazine called
yeah,
442, yeah.
of course, yeah.
Is that still about? I don't know if that's still around at all, is it?
I have no idea. That's something for the comment section to find out for us.
Do
Yeah,
they still do the match magazine, the shoot magazine? Do they still do their magazines?
I've got a hunch they do. Yeah, I've got a feeling that they do. But yeah, it's yeah, the fact that the 442 is part was a classic footballing magazine just compounds the idea that it was, you know, that is what football is, right? That formation, that's the birthplace of football formations, I think.
Talk about the Match magazine, though, because we are talking about retro stuff. I remember buying them as a kid. I always bought the Match magazine, and in the middle, you used to have like a supplement where it had all the results and all the things like the and stuff. And I'm very analytical when it comes to statistics. I'm all over attendances, record attendances. It's always been with me since a kid, and I think it's from their magazines because I say the bit used to pull out. And I'm a bit sad. I used to put them into a folder, just the supplement in the middle, where all the matches had, all the attendances and all the, and I was all over it. And it's never left me there. It's always been with me, even now with ground capacities and record attendances and what the attendances are for the day. And yeah, and even now I look out for the attendances, how much they was at Gill, 6,000, Stone, and yeah, and even mention it on my videos as well when I'm ground hopping. But yeah,
You're the same as me. I'm in the nerd level there as well. I quite like that. I'm a big fan of statistics and numbers, and they give a lot of meaning to me. And because in the same way, I was always fascinated with football stadiums across the country, the names of them, how much they hold. Like I'd pride myself. I reckon if you named a couple of grounds, I'd know the name and roughly how many it held and things like that. And and it's from those magazines that I would learn that. And obviously going away watching Gillingham, I would learn that as well. And yeah, it's but I think a lot of that comes from those publications of Match magazine and so on. Yeah, you'd get a lot of information to sleuth through with those things. Yeah.
Pre-internet days, you couldn't you had to sort of research things, didn't you? Literally buy books and things. But yeah,
yeah.
Okay, there's our 10, and I'll pop them up on the screen as we've been talking. Now, bit of a curveball. Is there one thing in modern football that you prefer to retro football? So something that they've introduced over the years, do you think, it's much better now than what it was 30 years ago? Do you have any ideas on what at least?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this in the sense that because when we're going through the list, I was actually the back of my mind. I was like, oh, if it was reversed, what would be? I've got one, and there's a limit to this. But one thing I would say is that we're going through technology's improving in games, and there's just two things. One, I think football pitches are the counter of the muddy pitch. I think football pitches are of high quality now, and I like that. But one thing I really do like in modern football, and it's a very specific thing, but it's it's changed a lot of games for the right reason, and it's literally goal line technology.
Okay.
For me, that as a change in football is excellent because it is an exact science. It either is or isn't over the line, and that can be done in the snap of a finger. And I think that rules out a lot of this sort of and ahhing that I think happened a lot around that. And obviously the Lampard situation when we played Germany in 2010, that's the one that hits us. But I think that for me is one of the developments of football that I really like. I will not extend it to VAR because then it becomes still a bit more subjective. But definitely goal line technology in the game for me is something I'm happy that there's an improvement on.
Yeah, but they use it Hawkeye and they use it in tennis. So they get line judges and you can't, it's bleep, it just tells you definitively if it's in or out. It's not like subjective, they think it was in and not quite. So you can't argue. So I'd agree with that. I think yeah, because if it's a foul, is it a free kick? But is it over the line? It's is it a goal? Is it not a goal? That is so like it can affect promotions, relegations, FA Cup win. It's such a big thing whether the goal's gone in or not. And so yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. Yeah, I think that's a good improvement in the game as opposed to years ago when it just didn't exist, that sort of technology. But
100%. I'm sure just before you move on, I'm sure there's a few Villa and Sheffield United fans who might you counter that because there's one specific incident I think a few seasons ago which the ball looked like it did go over the line in replays. Goalkeeper took it over, but the goal line technology didn't pick up on it. I think it was a Sheffield United goal. They should have scored against Villa. But, I'm sure someone might pick up on that in the comments. But yeah, that's the only time I've ever seen it questioned. But technology is that is 99.99% foolproof. It's bound to make a mistake, and it has, I think, once that I can remember. But I'm all for goal line technology.
yeah, I just thought of another retro one actually. Just
Go
literally, FA Cup semi-finals at neutral grounds.
Oh yes,
Not
yeah.
at
One's
Wembley. For me, Wembley is sacred. It's special for finals.
Mhm.
When it used to be at Old Trafford or Villa Park or Hillsborough, or they've got so many decent grounds there. It could be at Newcastle or it could be at Arsenal or top. There's some really decent stadiums now. And if you've got two Northernish teams, are playing at Newcastle, I'd like.
I remember watching this. Is it a semi-cup FA Cup final? Was it Chester versus Middlesbrough? I think at Man United, and that. Yeah, you're right. It's save Wembley for your finals. That's more special.
Yeah.
And go to a neutral ground semi-final. Yeah, of course. Totally forgot about that. Yeah, I'd be in favour of going back to that.
Yeah, and the people visit the town. The city can make a bit of a thing of it on the day, and yeah, just for me, I think it's just lost a bit of. And I know what they've done. They were trying to pay off Wembley, still paying off. I don't know if they paid it off yet, but that's why. But from a spectacle point of view for the FA Cup, I preferred the neutral grounds. But my curveball one, which
Yes.
I do harp on a lot about retrofit, and I love it the old days, but I'm not completely. There are some things that are really, really great these days, and one thing I think is much better than it was 30 years ago, and that is the non-league football pyramid. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So now we've got National League, which used to be the Vauxhall Conference, and now you have, obviously, which has been around there for like 12, 13, 14 years. Now you've got the National League North and the National League South, and below that you've got Isthmian Premier, Southern Premier, Southern Central Premier, and Northern Premier. So it's a perfect pyramid, one, two, four, and it goes into feeder leagues. Whereas a few years ago, before you had the National North and South, you had three. You had the Isthmian Premier, Southern Premier, and Northern Premier. So you had three divisions feeding into one, and it was a bit. It just wasn't natural divisible numbers. Like it was all a bit. You had to win the league, lots of weird playoffs, and I think now it just works. I think how they've got the pyramid now below the football league. I love it. I'm a big fan of non-league football. You're probably aware of my videos, and I just like how it works. I think it's pretty brutal. If you four go down, two go up. The way it is, but I like that. It's I think it's a really good system. I think it's very special in England what we got, and I hope they never tinker with it. I think they got the formula right now. It took them a few seasons to get it right, but they got it right. Please don't mess around with it, FA,
Yeah.
as it is. Yeah, just leave it now and leave it alone. But yeah, big fan of the way it is now. I think it works perfectly. So
I think we are. You're right. We're the envy of the world with the football pyramid structure in England. I think it works excellently well. And what's really beautiful about it is you can get teams from the ninth and 10th tier start making headway up the leagues. And I mean the local example for us at the moment is Chatham Town, who are doing their bits. And I think they're not having a great season at the moment, but they had a success in promotions to be breaching on the Conference South, which is an absolutely wonderful achievement. But yes, it gives much more of a concession for teams that are doing well to find a way through to go up the leagues. And if a team starts to crumble, then their position in the pyramid reflects that. And I think that's a really nice fluid system that works through the pyramid. That even like if we go to other countries around the world, even like the MLS, like it doesn't exist, and I think we can be very proud of what we have there. Like there is almost in the football league, every game has meaning because of the structure that we have, and when you have that extra layer of competition or competitive games, like therefore it's meaningful. Therefore, we have to play our best, and therefore the entertainment value is usually consistent and solid all the time. And that is something that we can be proud of in England, that we have the structure.
And I think non-league football is really booming at the moment. It's really popular. Crowds are definitely going up across the board, and I went to some non-league games that are sort of National League South and even like Isthmian Premier, and the crowds are incredible. I mean, I went to Dulwich Hamlet last season, and there's like over 3,000 there. Dulwich Hamlet, Chatham, 3,000. It's incredible.
I mean, people can't afford to go into the Premier League games anymore, can they? And they've been priced out of it potentially.
when I read through the comments, as I'm sure you do on your videos, is that a lot of people they pretty much drop their season ticket for Man United or Aston Villa or whoever, and they now pretty much support a local team.
Mm.
They become season ticket holders, probably for £200 or £150 or something for
Yeah.
the season. And they sort of follow them home and away because it's all quite localish. And yeah, I just think people are falling back in love with football again when they start visiting and following local clubs of a certain level, not right down because if you're going down to sort of tier 10s, 3 men and a dog watching, it's not a lot of fun. Go to where there's decent little grounds, you're getting crowds of 500 plus, where it generates an atmosphere. I think people when they go, they think, oh, this is quite like walking around the pitch is all good fun. Yeah, and I think that's a testament to the pyramid. It's helped with the crowds, and yeah, I just love how it works now. I think it's a great product, it really is. And as I say, please don't change it because people tend to tinker with things. It does annoy me sometimes. And as you said earlier on with the World Cup and the European Championships, it worked fine before, and then they tinker with it. You think, no, don't tinker with it, just leave it. But hopefully they won't. And yeah, that's my one. That's good for modern day football, definitely.
Yeah, love it. I love that. And yeah, leave. If don't fix things if they're not broken. That's kind of it, really, isn't it? And with the football league structure, hands off.
Leave it. No B teams either.
Oh God, no.
No B teams ever in any league ever, ever, ever. So yeah. So wow, I think we've rattled through them, Reese.
We've already have. Yeah, I mean, proper chewing the fat. It's a real solid episode. I'm well pleased with that.
Look, thank you so much again. Always interested to hear. You always got something to say about football. It's that's why I like having you on this episode. It's great. But
thanks for having me on. Always a pleasure. Of course, always a pleasure.
And make sure you check out Reese's German Gills channel, and make sure you hit his subscribe button on his channel as well. If you haven't seen it, he does, as I always say, the best commentary around on YouTube, and you must stand by that as well. So
thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, thanks everyone else. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, like, and definitely drop us some comments. I've got a feeling we're going to get a few comments on this, Reece. So
yeah,
I'll reply to all the comments as I always do, and let us know what you think. Do you agree or do you disagree with us? And we'll have a good summary at the end of it to see if we're on the right track or not. But I think we're going to get a few thumbs up on this one for people agreeing with us anyway, and certain most of our subjects. So, but anyway, thanks again, and bye for now. And there we have it. And what a great discussion that was with Reece, where he was completely reminiscing on what was better back in the day that we just love to have in this modern game of ours. If you got to the end, many thanks for getting to the end. It's quite a long one today, but I think it's worth watching through its entirety. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Hit the like button and also comment. All free to do. And drop us a comment. As I say, I try and reply to all the comments. And if you get 5 minutes, check out my ground hopping videos on the library. And I'll see you at my next video, which will probably be at the weekend. But thanks again, and bye for now.